Welcome to Apple Valley Center's mandatory training. In this session, we're going to cover medical compressed gas safety. Three objectives will be describe the hazards associated with medical gases, discuss safe handling and use of medical gases, and explain proper storage procedures for these medical gases. Definitions: compressed gas, any material that is normally a gas which is placed under pressure or chilled and contained by a cylinder. Cryogenic is liquid-filled gases that are kept in their liquid state at a very low temperatures, below 292 negative Fahrenheit. Flammable, a material that which will burn or catch on fire easily at normal temperatures below 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Inert, a gas that does not usually react with other things. Some examples of medical gases include medical air, oxygen, helium. In our center, we have oxygen and helium, which are both located in the South 2 oxygen storage room. All gases should be labeled. Safety begins with proper identification, which will have a label and pictograms. All cylinders must be able to be readable, and it will give precautionary warnings to the user and how to properly handle them. The color of the cylinder may not alone be used to identify cylinder contents. Normally, for example, green would be for oxygen, but is always not necessarily the case, so please be aware of what you're using. Cylinders that are not properly labeled should be set apart for return and not be used. Please make sure you are using the correct medical gas for the correct application. There are physical hazards that are associated with compressed gases because of the high pressure inside the cylinders. For example, oxygen in the E-tanks can range from 1800 to 2200 psi. Gases can be released by opening cylinder valves or accidentally from a broken or leaky valve or safety device. Even at the lowest pressure, gas can flow rapidly from an open or leaky cylinder. These must be reported and taken care of immediately if you experience one of these physical hazards. Compressed gases also have health hazards that could be flammable, corrosive, toxic. For example, some compressed gases may have a combination of hazards. For example, liquid oxygen combines both oxidizer hazard with cryogenic. We don't have liquid oxygen currently in Apple Valley. We just have cylinders. Detailed information regarding the physical and chemical properties are always located in the safety data sheet, which is located at each nurse's station. Some of the do's prior to use would be to remove any paper wrapping before cylinder is placed in service. Make sure it has proper labeling, color coding. Make sure there's no damage to the cylinder. And if there are damages, they must be returned to the supplier. Safe handling do's. Make sure you are trained and experienced in handling the compressed gas. Read all the warning and precautionary information on the cylinder labels. When the cylinder is empty, place it in a proper storage container. Make sure you keep the compressed gas away from sparks or flame. Never drag an oxygen cylinder, especially on carpet, as it could lead to static electricity. Safe handling do's continued. Leave the valve protection caps in place for your large cylinders, your H tanks, until cylinders are secured and connected for use. Always leave the valves closed when the gas is not being used. Keep the valves closed before returning empty cylinders to storage, and replace the valve protection caps for large cylinders, which are your H tanks. Handle empty cylinders as carefully as full ones. Please ensure you shut the empty cylinders off. Some other safe handling do's: always follow the instructions for using regulators. Open valve slowly. Stand so the valve outlet is pointed away from yourself in the work areas. Use wrenches or tools if needed. Make sure the threads on the regulator to cylinder valve connections are properly aligned. Check to ensure the connections are tight to prevent leakage. Open the cylinder valve completely when cylinder is in use. Close the cylinder valves and relieve the pressure in regulator before disconnecting the regulator. That's especially with your helium. Keep valves closed unless gas is being dispensed. Use valve protection caps to protect the valves when moving cylinders. Always secure cylinders to a suitable hand truck when transporting them within the center. For your E-tanks, that is not necessary. You can handle those with your hands as they're much smaller than an H-tank. These primary rules apply to your H-tanks, which are much larger than our E-tanks. Safe handling don'ts. Don't use cylinders for any other purpose than what they're intended for. Don't let any flammable materials or combustible materials come in contact with the containers, valves, or regulators. Never lubricate the valves, regulators, or fittings. Do not handle cylinders or apparatus with oily hands or gloves. Never remove labels or other identification markers. Never utilize gas cylinders in temperatures that exceed 125 degrees Fahrenheit. Do not drop or let cylinders strike against each other, as they could actually explode and become like a torpedo. Never roll, drag, or slide cylinders. Again, this goes back to the carpets. You do not want to ever drag the cylinders. Always carry or use a hand truck to move the cylinders. When it comes to bulk storage, here are some do's. Ensure the storage location is protected from unauthorized access. For example, our oxygen is stored on South 2 oxygen room, which is only key entered. Make sure the room is constructed of non-combustible or limited combustible materials, which is our room meets that standard. Proper signage needs to be in place anytime any gas is being utilized. Physically separate gases stored within the room or type of hazard. For example, if you had helium and oxygen within the same room, they should be separated. Maintain a minimum distance of 20 feet between oxidizing gases and combustible materials. Note, minimum distance may be reduced to 5 feet when the room is protected by an automatic fire sprinkler system, which our building is 100% sprinkled. Some more storage do's. Separate full and empty cylinders and ensure they are marked as such. For example, in our oxygen storage room, empties go on the right hand side and full containers go on the left hand side. Rotate cylinders so they are used in order that they are receiving, first in, first out. Secure cylinders with racks, dollies, and chains to ensure they are protected from falling. Never leave an oxygen container standing by itself. It always should be in some type of rack or holder. Oxygen. Every oxygen cylinder should have a warning tag for medical oxygen equipment. Store no more than 12 size E oxygen cylinders or 1H and 2E size cylinders in a single smoke compartment. What that means, for example, in North 1, when the 2 fire doors close by 112, 113, that is considered the smoke compartment. Also, make sure we are storing all containers in a holder or the rack if they are empty. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to take your quiz.